Hello, I'm John Thorne from Silverstone Shooting Centre and welcome to the next episode in our series on practical Minirifle. In this one we're talking about start positions. Hello, welcome back. Right, start positions. This is the one thing that you should be practicing more than anything else when you're learning to shoot practical Minirifle. Because I can guarantee no matter what a course of fire you're going to have, no matter what it's doing or how it's doing it, there will be a start position. Therefore it's the most common thing you'll get to do. What we're going to do today is go through the various start positions and a couple of practice details of each one. This is something you can practice at your home range or even practice at home, obviously not live fire, but in terms of your range at home, because there's no moving going on, arguably speaking, you could practice this in a normal range and a normal shooting range environment. Now, first things first, what we have, there are a variety of rules in terms of start positions, being loaded and unloaded starts, okay? There are lots of different calls, option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, different versions. And you know what? They differ from different kinds of regulations. So option 1, option 2 and 3 for pistol may be different to option 1, 2 and 3 for shotgun because of how the function of the firearms work. So the purposes of today, I don't really care about option 1, 2 and 3. In fact, people complain at me, I've been shooting for 10 years and I don't really know what they are. I always go on the basis of actually asking the range officer what the start position should be. Gets awkward, too late. As far as I'm concerned, asking where you are and what the position of the gun is going to be is a perfectly reasonable thing to do at shooting. Okay, so the thing to consider though, if the gun has ammunition in it of any kind, the safety must be on. If the gun has no ammunition in it, the safety can be off if you so choose. Okay, that's a main rule to consider. So there are different start positions to have and they all depend on whether the chamber is empty or it's forward or not. So first standard position, what we call a racing start, is where the gun is held parallel to the ground with the butt touching the hip, which is belt level from here. So that is a standard racing start position.
Are you ready? Stand by!
Parallel to the ground, butt touching hip. Okay, so that's first thing first. So what I'm going to do is do a couple little details where we're going to start the position. Well, I've got two targets down there about 30 metres away to shoot at. All right, so I've had the command load them ready, so I can literally take my breech flag out, load my gun, the action's forward, safety is on. What I'm going to do is I've got a timer here, I'll just do myself a couple of details. All right, and how to start position with your hand position is what you're having is, there's my thumb on the safety. So the moment the buzzer goes off, the first thing I am doing is flicking the safety off straight away. If I'm sitting here normally holding the gun, I've got to do that. So my start position is the thumb literally touching the safety. As long as it's on, that's the process. All right? So I've got on a timer on the start here and we'll go from there.
Are you ready? Stand by.
There you go. First thing to do, first round of the day, and we have a light strike, which is perfect because what do you do in a light strike in a competition? Tough, carry on, shoot them as you can. So that example, first round is a cold gun, first thing done this morning, light strike on it. Rack it, start again. Perfect filming there, couldn't have made that if I tried. But let's try it again. So safety's back on. And again. And each time, have a quick check at your time. So that's 1.39 seconds. Not particularly quick, you should be around about a second if you can do it, but frankly it's cold. Now one thing I'd consider about being cold is that ideally you should practice in the clothing that you're shooting. Let me just clear this. So what you've got, at the moment it's freezing cold here today and I'm wearing gloves. I tend not to recommend wearing gloves when shooting because it's one more thing to get in your way. When it's pretty much -1 or 2 here now, sometimes you have no choice. Also, I'm wearing a big thick fuzzy coat. Generally, you should try and practice in the clothing you're shooting in. One of the reasons why our team clothing are made of this nice silky material, it means the gun is easy to slide around the body when you're manoeuvring around the range. So a thermal underneath is okay, but ideally you should practice under clothes you're shooting. The example being on this jacket here, I could very easily catch the jacket as I'm manoeuvring it, and it'll be bad news in terms of competing. So the purpose of doing it now, and the fact I don't want to freeze my butt off, I'm going to leave my jacket on. But really, if you can, practice with the clothing you're shooting if you can. Okay, so that's the standard position, racing start. Got a few others now. One of the common ones we have is what's called a trail start. Okay, trail is when the gun is held parallel to the ground again, but the arm straight. Now it's quite crucial this, because obviously you bend the arm, it's not a trail position, it has to be a straight arm. Now as you can see, it's a reasonably heavy gun, the Vector. I could hold that for a few minutes, but after a while it starts to get tiring. Now where you hold the gun is entirely up to you. Okay, it makes no difference, as long as it's held parallel to the ground and as long as this arm is straight. Okay, so hold the scope, you hold it at the front, you hold it at the back, wherever you can. Okay, for me with a Vector, bearing that it shoots slightly different, I'll hold it from the back because it enables me to bring my hand up to the shoulder, and then I can shoot.
So it could have been low 30.
So let's go with a strong hand trail start. Get timer going. Again, another light strike. Come from -2 out here, not helpful. We'll try that again, so safety back off. One more. Out of ammo. So that's a strong hand trail. There is also weak hand trail. So this example, other side. So I'm a left-handed shooter, so a weak hand trail. Now this is normally easier because it means your trigger hand is slightly better used. So this example, I hold the gun from the front, keeping it parallel, and then the buzzer goes off, I'm up, into my shoulder, and shooting as you do normally. All right, so that's it. So that's a strong hand trail, and that's weak hand trail. And then these are things you can practice. And I recommend you practice over and over again, with a timer if you can, because that gives you an idea in terms of how you're performing, and go through a process one by one in terms of times. Okay, so that's fairly crucial. Now, other thing about it is the condition of the gun. Now, you can have any number of combinations in terms of it being a strong hand or weak hand trail. It can be an unloaded start or loaded. So for example, you could have a weak hand trail, unloaded start. Now the fact it's unloaded means I can have the safety off, which is good. But an unloaded start would be up on the buzzer, shoot. Okay? And again, depends on what you've got in terms of start position. So you can also, the course of fire can dictate whether the action is forward or not. So for example, on a Chris Vector, action forward means it's closed, so a closed action. So for me, magazine in, and to shoot, it won't shoot, obviously because there's an empty chamber. So I have to brack the action before it can shoot. That's quite common. If there's nothing dictated in the course guidance, and when you start for the course of fire, you're always better off to have the action back on an unloaded start. The reason why is that magazine in, unloaded start, let's say on trail, if I need to close the action before I can shoot. If I have the action shut already, I have to literally go up, rack it, and off I go. But if I have the action held back already, the action's now held back, I'm up straight away. It's much, much faster. So some course of fire will say to you, you must have the action forward or closed, or open. If it's left clear, then always have the action open, because it means you can bring it forward. And that's helpful for the Vector, and ditto of me left-handed shooter. I can move the action forward. But for a right-handed shooter, again, the same thing applies. Action forward in the Vector is with a support hand, so it makes it faster. Also, other start positions are things like a gun on a table. So what I'm going to do now is try looking back. Now, another common start position, and fairly in a competition, at least one of these are there, is a position where the gun and or the magazine are not on you. So on a table of some kind, or a tyre or something. It's quite a common start because it's part of practical shooting. Now, there can be unloaded or loaded, different versions. I'm going to try both here. Generally speaking, when you find it, there'll be the course rules will dictate where the gun has to be. And a common one is making sure the butt of the gun is fully on the table or whatever implement it's on. Reason for that is to stop people being silly and balancing the gun, which could be a safety issue if it's loaded obviously, but also pivoting the gun lifts up the barrel. So generally speaking, they try and keep it so it's on the table itself. So what I'm going to do is do a loaded start. Okay, so load it ready. Okay, safety's on. And again, this is one of those little ones where the different type of gun will make a difference. Shooting the Vector as I do, it has a little gap I can get my hand underneath the gun and I can quickly get the gun on board. For an AR type platform, sometimes you have little bits. Now, it may well be, it's quite a clever way of doing it. Let's say it's a loaded start. There's no regulations about the magazines, so what you tend to do is you balance the gun on a magazine. So it means that gives me more access to my hand to pick the gun up rather than having to scoop it off a flat surface, which is obviously slower. And again, it's a little tricky thing to do. If the regulations may stop you doing it, but if the course of fire says you're okay doing that, you can balance the gun. So there's my magazine, balance on there. So I'm going to do the same thing, and the may will dictate your hands in certain positions. So for example, hands flat on a table, that's a common one as well. Now since COVID, we've stopped doing that because obviously it's touching of things, but we'll do it anyway. So this is going to be a loaded start from the table. So do the same thing again. Let's try a few goes. So that was 2.57, garbage. So we'll try again. .43. So one more go. .18. There you go. It's getting better each time. So let's unload that. Let's try an unloaded start. And this time, no balancing of things. Okay. Now with an unloaded start, or it may well dictate the magazine must be on your body. So let's say, for example, we can't have a table here. We can't have magazine at a table. We must have our magazines on our body. So an unloaded start, it means I can have safety off, no gun in the van at all, and I've held my action back because it's faster in terms of getting the action forward. But unless it dictates you must do one or the other, have it action back if you can. So this example, we're going to do an unloaded start. Now for a Vector, I pick up with the supporting hand, which is helpful because I've got a mag holder on the side, which makes it very easy to pick up. Slightly different for ARs and with your left or right handed. But same thing applies. We're going to load, back action forward and shoot it. .25 first one. Let's try again. Yeah, slower then, because I actually put the safety on by accident of doing it. So, and that's a good example to have, is that know the condition of your gun before you pick it up. So example, I instinctively put the safety on then. So when I picked it again for again, the safety was on, it's one less to do. And it added on 0.3 of a second. That one little delay in my mind remembering to put the safety off makes a difference. So a table start is quite common. What's also quite common is a seated start. Now again, it can be an unloaded loaded start process behind it. Seated starts tend to be a shoot from a certain position. Now, there's no real trick to this to some extent. All you've got to be careful of is when you're sitting lower down, the propensity for the muzzle to go up is much higher. Okay, now if the course of fire is dictating you must have a lower angle of muzzle, which sometimes you do, it's something to be careful of. But all of these are start positions, especially the bench start. You can practice at your own range because you're still in your shooting lane and you can sit and practice unloaded start, loaded start, action forward, action back. And also in terms of having a magazine in your body or having it on the table. Now, other than that, there really is no more you can have. And a lot of course directors, like myself included, like to mix it up. So for example, let's put a magazine over there somewhere, and the start position is go and get the magazine, come back to a gun and shoot the course of fire. So the whole mixture, you can have the process behind it. And what you tend to find in any competition, there'll be a mixture. There'll be a few racing starts, there'll be a few trail starts, a couple of week starts, a couple of bench table ones. So the process is to practice. And the one thing I've practiced more than anything, which is why it's probably a longer video most of us, is that you're going to have a start position on every course of fire you have. So the more you practice that, the better it's going to help you. And get yourself a time if you can. This one, little double alpha timers, and you have it on par time. So I can sit there and I can literally hold it. It gives me a delay, allows you to set up, buzzer goes off. And it tells me, in terms of recording the first shot, how long I'm being. And what I'm trying to do is make it faster and faster. Okay. The other thing behind it though, I always put targets a good 30, 40 meters away. No point having a target 2 meters away if you can help it, because you concentrate too much on getting ready and don't worry about the aiming. When you get to a competition, you're very rarely going to get that. Just something to consider. All right, hope that's useful. Definitely something worth practicing. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.